Hey, Alberta, let's talk about option two. I've been thinking a lot about the referendum question, and I honestly think many Albertans are misunderstanding what they're being asked to decide. People talk about October 19th as though we're voting on independence. We're not. Let's look at what the ballot actually says. Option one, Alberta should remain a province of Canada. Option two, the Government of Alberta should commence the legal process required under the Canadian Constitution to hold a binding provincial referendum on whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada. That's an important distinction. This vote is non binding. No matter which option wins, Alberta does not become independent the next day. So, if that's true, what are we really voting on? I think we're voting on whether Alberta should continue negotiating with Ottawa from the same position we've occupied for decades, or whether we should negotiate with something we've rarely had before: leverage. Let's be honest. If you believe Alberta has been treated fairly, if you're happy with the way our energy industry has been regulated, if you think we've had adequate pipeline access, if you're comfortable with the pace of economic growth, investment leaving the province, and the federal policies that affect Alberta, then option one is the logical choice. Because option one says the current relationship is working well enough to continue. But if you've ever found yourself frustrated that Alberta contributes so much yet often feels ignored, frustrated that projects with national economic importance become political footballs, frustrated that decisions affecting Alberta are frequently made by governments elected with very little support here, frustrated that Alberta seems to spend more time asking for permission than building its future, then ask yourself this: why would we voluntarily weaken our own negotiating position? In every negotiation, leverage matters. Businesses understand that. Farmers understand that. Workers understand that. Governments understand that. In fact, we're watching other provincial premiers openly argue that Alberta's energy should be used as leverage in Canada's negotiations with the United States. Think about what they're admitting. They're acknowledging that Alberta possesses one of the most valuable strategic assets in North America. If Alberta's energy is powerful enough to strengthen Canada's negotiation position with Washington, why wouldn't it strengthen Alberta's negotiating position with Ottawa? That's why I struggle to understand why Premier Daniel Smith wouldn't encourage Albertans to choose option two. She spent years arguing that Alberta deserves a fairer deal in Confederation. She's fought against federal overreach. She's demanded more respect for Alberta's jurisdiction. If that's the case, why wouldn't she want the strongest possible mandate before entering negotiations? Option two doesn't close any doors. It opens one. It tells Ottawa that Albertans are serious. It says the status quo is no longer acceptable. And then we see what Canada is prepared to offer. If meaningful reforms are possible, this creates the greatest incentive they've had in decades to put them on the table. If they aren't, Albertans still retain the final say in a future binding referendum. Either way, Alberta is negotiating from a position of greater strength. To me, that's what this vote is really about. Not making a final decision, making sure that whatever comes next, Alberta doesn't walk into the most important negotiations in its history with one hand tied behind its back.